What if I told you that the food on your plate could actually be making you older faster than the date on your driver's license? Well, today we're going to dive into the surprising science behind the foods that can actually speed up your biological clock. So let me ask you this. Are you really the age it says on your license? It seems like a simple question, right? But the answer is way more complex than you'd think. Because it turns out we all have two ages, the one we celebrate with candles and cake, and a whole other one ticking away deep inside our cells. So, on one hand, you've got your chronological age. That's simple. It's just how many laps you've made around the sun. But on the other side, we have your biological age. And this is the one that really matters. It's the true age of your cells and tissues. And here's the crazy part. Those two numbers, they don't always match up. You to be 40 on paper, but your cells might be acting like they're 50. So, what in the world is causing that gap? Well, to understand what foods to watch out for, we first got to understand how they do their damage. Scientists basically pinpointed three key biological processes that are like hitting the fast forward button on our internal clock. Okay, first step is something called telomere shortening. So imagine these little protective caps on the ends of your DNA. Those are your telomeres. Every single time one of your cells divides, those little caps get just a tiny bit shorter. Scientists can actually measure them, and their length is a huge clue to your biological age. The shorter they get, the older your cells are, functionally speaking. This is a fantastic way to think about it. Telomeres are like those little plastic tips on your shoelaces, the ones that keep the lace from completely unraveling. Well, telomeres do the same thing for our DNA. When they get too worn down, our cells can't divide properly anymore, and that leads to cellular aging. All right, accelerator number two is a process called glycation. This is what happens when you've got too much sugar floating around in your bloodstream. That extra sugar starts getting sticky. It literally latches onto proteins and fats, creating these really harmful molecules. And get this, they're called advanced glycation end products, or wait for it, AGEs. Yeah, the name is pretty much perfect, right? So you can basically think of glycation as your body slowly carnalizing from the inside out. It attacks these really important flexible things like collagen, the protein that keeps your skin looking firm and youthful, and it makes it all stiff and brittle. And that damage shows up on the outside as wrinkles and saggy skin. And our third and final accelerator is oxidative stress. The easiest way to think about this is like biological rusting. It happens when you've got an imbalance in your body. Too many of these damaging, unstable molecules called free radicals, and not enough of the good guys, the antioxidants, to clean them up. This imbalance causes all sorts of damage to our cells, from our DNA all the way to the cell walls themselves. Okay, so now we know the how. Telomere shortening, glycation, and oxidative stress. Let's get to the good stuff, the what. The specific foods that are actually pushing these accelerators into overdrive. And first on the list is processed meats. We're talking about things you find in pretty much every deli and grocery store. Bacon, sausage, hot dogs, ham, all those pre-packaged lunch meats. Research has found a really direct link between these foods and one of those aging markers we just talked about. So how does a slice of bacon actually do this? Well, studies show that eating more processed meats leads directly to shorter telomeres. It seems to be because they are loaded with preservatives, salt, and saturated fats, which create this perfect storm of oxidative stress and inflammation in the body. And that constant stress just wears away at those protective telomere caps. And if you're wondering just how big a deal this is, check out this number. One major study found that the difference in telomere length between people who ate the most processed meat and those who ate the least was the equivalent of 3.4 times years of biological aging. That is a huge difference. All right, our second category is probably one you saw coming. We're talking about sugary foods and drinks. These things are basically like pouring gasoline on that fire of glycation we talked about a minute ago. These refined sugars are the number one fuel for creating those collagen-wrecking AGs. And the tricky thing is, they are everywhere. I mean, they're in the obvious stuff, like sodas and candy, but they're also hiding in so many other places. Your ketchup, barbecue sauce, salad dressings, and even a lot of breakfast cereals and so-called healthy yogurts. And what's really fascinating here is that not all sugars are created equal in this process. Not even close. Research shows that fructose, which is super concentrated in things like high fructose corn syrup, is about 7 times more reactive than regular glucose when it comes to forming these damaging AGEs. That makes it extra tough on your body's proteins. Okay, our third and final category is a little different. It's not just about the food itself, but about how it's cooked. We're talking about deep fried foods and the oils they're cooked in. This combo creates a really toxic situation for your cells. So here's a quick chemistry lesson. When you use certain industrial vegetable oils, like corn oil, soybean oil, canola oil, and you heat them up to high temperatures, it sets off this nasty chain reaction. It creates this super toxic compound that's a massive driver of oxidative stress. That cellular rusting that just damages everything it comes into contact with. So we've got processed meats, sugary snacks, and deep fried stuff. When you kind of step back and look at them all together, a really clear pattern starts to show up. It's not really about one single bad ingredient. The common threads are all about industrial food production. It's the ultra processing that strips nutrients away. It's the high heat cooking methods that create new harmful compounds. And it's a diet that just becomes overloaded with added sugars, refined oils, and all sorts of chemical additives that just fan the flames of inflammation and oxidative stress. Okay, I know, that was a lot of bad news. But it leads to a really important question, right? If some foods can speed the clock up, can other foods help slow it down or maybe even turn it back? Well, the research suggests the answer is a big, resounding yes. But first, just to really drive home how much our choices matter, look at this. A major study found that people eating more than 3 servings of these ultra processed foods a day had nearly double the odds of having short telomeres compared to people who ate less than 2. That's that's a huge connection. So, what's the antidote? A telomere-friendly diet. And the principles are actually pretty simple. You're just trying to fight back against those 3 aging accelerators. So, to combat oxidative stress, you load up on antioxidants from things like berries and leafy greens. To fight inflammation, you eat more anti-inflammatories like walnuts and turmeric. And to support your whole system, you want tons of fiber from whole grains and beans. Ultimately, all of this science brings us right back to our own kitchen table. Every meal, every snack, it's a choice. So the question I want to leave you with is this. What's on your plate tonight, and which clock are you feeding? The one on the wall or the one inside yourselves? Thanks for joining me. If you like our content, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next videos.